I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside. It's so comfortable and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, no, we're going to do this. And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
You would think that when my own children or good friends have problems and difficulties in life, you would think I would recommend to them my book, Choose Yourself, which describes times when I've had hardships and the ways I used to kind of pick myself out of being broke or sick or depressed or whatever. But that is not the book I give people. I usually give the book The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. And today, The Miracle Morning, updated and expanded edition, the not-so-obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life before 8 a.m. by Hal Elrod. It's the 10th year anniversary. It's an expanded edition. He now includes the Miracle Evening and the Miracle Life and other stuff. It's coming out today. I highly recommend people buy it. I mean, just think, like, imagine you wake up one morning, your lungs collapsed, you have cancer, you're told you're going to die in 2 or 3 weeks. And Hal Elrod had been doing the Miracle Morning for years at this point, and he shows how it applied during a situation like that for himself, or when he was going broke and losing his house, or when he got into a car accident and was declared dead 3 times on the way to the hospital, or the hundreds of thousands of people who are in his community who have benefited from the ideas in this book and his SAVERS acronym. So we talk about it all, and he's one of my favorite people.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show.
So Hal, I can't even remember, how did we first meet?
I think we met at a Mastermind Talks, I think.
Yeah, one of Jason Gagneur's Mastermind Talks.
I believe so, yeah.
I feel like most people I know, I met at those Mastermind Talks. He puts on the best conference on the planet. And I don't really like, I don't want to call this a self-help conference, but I don't really like those types of conferences. And that's not what his conference is, but all of, like, I met you, I met Lewis Howes, I met AJ Jacobs, so many people at those conferences. I mean, even though I had met them before, like Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss were at those conferences, Ben Greenfield, so many great and interesting people who have also been podcast guests. This is like your 3rd or 4th time on the podcast. So,
yeah, I think second or third. I think, yeah. We were trying to figure out if it was the 3rd or the 2nd. We couldn't remember.
It's at least the 3rd if you came on in 2018, because I think I had you on like very early because of the Miracle Morning, just the
Yeah.
original Miracle Morning, which came out 10 years ago and is such a great book. Like I felt like we were thinking along similar lines. Like I wrote Choose Yourself around the same time, but you really turned the Miracle Morning into this valuable community for hundreds of thousands of people who are accountable for each other. And look, I give your book to my kids, my
Oh,
spouse, my friends. Like it's a really like life-saving book, and you've had some pretty intense stories to go along with it, which I really appreciate. And then it seems like when you're going through these intense, horrible times, you, like many, read a lot of different, like, let's say, self-help, self-empowerment books, but you really distilled the best things into what worked for you and in your successful morning routine. And now from this book, which is the 10th year anniversary of the Miracle Morning, the updated and expanded edition, you have the Miracle Evening and the Miracle Life. So it was good to see your evening routine. I've always wondered about that.
yeah.
But we'll talk about your Savers concept, which is an acronym, in a second. But I want to talk first, just real quickly, about affirmations and visualization, because it's not
Okay.
like The Secret, right?
No, not at all. That for me, I think that was always a big disconnect. Is I'm a very results oriented person. You know, my background is in sales, and so when you learn these, almost like woo woo concepts, like just tell yourself that you're a money magnet and money's going to flow into your life because you make a vision board and put everything like that never worked for me, and I'm like, no, I need these practices to be practical, actionable, results oriented. And I think that's the reason the Miracle Morning has been such a perennial bestseller, is because just the way my brain works, it's like I want to take these esoteric concepts and make them really simple. And I want to take these woo-woo practices and make them really practical. And so I think that's what the Miracle Morning did, is it took affirmations and visualization and actually made them really, really practical, actionable, etc.
But one thing we've I don't think we've ever talked about it was your bout with cancer. So when I remember this happening on Facebook, and every day everybody was so concerned about you, like thousands of people. But you woke up one day, and maybe tell the story.
Yeah. Yeah. So 2016, I had just moved to Texas from California, and woke up one evening in the middle of the night, struggling to breathe. And keep a long story short, turned out my not only was my lung collapsed, but my heart was on the verge of failing and my kidneys were failing. And I was diagnosed with a rare aggressive form of cancer called acute lymphoblastic leukemia. It's a blood cancer that causes your organs to fail. And I was already on death's doorway, if you will. And when I was diagnosed, they gave me the survival rate, which was a grim 20 to 30%. So only 20 to 30% of the people diagnosed with this cancer make it. And that means 70 to 80% die. And the day that I was diagnosed,
And you were given like 3 or 4 weeks or something to live.
yeah, the doctor literally said, if you don't start chemotherapy, you have between 1 and 3 weeks before your organs will completely shut down. And I didn't want to do chemo because I knew, the harmful effects of chemo, that it's a poison, and essentially it's trying to kill the cancer while it kills you. And the hope is that it kills the cancer before it kills you, and then you can, survive. But I didn't want to do the permanent damage. I wanted to beat it holistically. And I called some of the best holistic doctors in the country, and they said, Hal, there's nothing we can do for you. Chemotherapy is the only option that you have to beat this cancer.
And it's not like, the thing about a blood cancer is you kind of need, and I don't quite know how this works, but you kind of need chemo all over your body. Like it's really the worst kind of cancer you can get. Like it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
You can't
it's
just have
traveling
surgery
through your
and,
entire body. Yeah.
like, you can't just have surgery and remove a lung or a liver. I mean, not that that's easy, but
Yeah.
it's all your blood.
Yeah, well, and because this particular cancer is so aggressive, the chemo regimen they hit it with is equally as aggressive. So I ended up doing 650 hours of chemotherapy over 7 months. So almost 100 hours a month for 7 months. And it did almost kill me. They actually canceled my last chemo treatment because they determined that they didn't think my body that I would survive it. But I will tell you this, that the day I was diagnosed with cancer, I decided that there's a 100% chance that I will be among the 20 to 30% of those that survive this. So rather than allowing that global statistic to determine my fate, if you will, I went, no. That statistic applies to all people, meaning people with terrible diets, people that have a terrible mindset, people that aren't willing to get out of their comfort zone and do whatever it takes to beat their cancer. And for me, I decided I'm not going to leave my fate in the hands of the doctors who have no skin in the game. If I die, that's just a number for them. I'm the only one that I have to take 100% responsibility for my life. And so I committed that, okay, if I am going to do this chemotherapy, which I am, or I did, I'm going to also relentlessly research every holistic practice available and implement all of them. And so I did as much, if not more, on the holistic side to build up my immune system and detoxify my liver from the chemo and strengthen and heal and all of those things in addition to the chemotherapy.
And so this is the question. This is a really critical question. So obviously you survived. Would you say you're healthier than ever? I mean, it's 7 years later.
Yeah, so it's funny. I've been asked that a couple times in the last few days. My lifestyle is healthier than ever, but the damage the chemo did to my body it's irreversible. Well, I don't know if it's irreversible. It feels that way. Like I have, issues with my bones and issues with my liver. And I have there's all these health problems that I shouldn't have at 44 years old, and I had a healthy diet even before the chemo, but no, I'm definitely the healthiest I've ever been in terms of my lifestyle is pretty much impeccable, pretty close to it. And and I still intend on living to be 100 plus years old alongside my wife and kids, which was part of what I affirmed during the cancer.
Well, I think you will, given the experiences I read about in this book. But so in the SAVERS acronym, A is for affirmations, V is for visualization, and I imagine, like you just said, you did some affirmations, you did some visualization, and I want to talk a little bit more about that. But what if you just don't believe it? What if you know, like I know 100 people who did affirmations while they had cancer, and it didn't work for them. And so I want to believe in these things. And I do believe, like you mentioned in the book, there's this connection between the body and the brain, and there's a connection between stress and health and optimism and health. But I'm so skeptical. I feel like they won't work for me, and I try it, and I feel like positive thinking doesn't really work for me.
Yeah. So I'll share with you, I think the two biggest problems with affirmations, the way that they've been taught by, many well-meaning self-help gurus, if you will, is there's two problems. Number one is we're taught to lie to ourselves and tell ourselves something that we wish were true, but we don't. It's not actually true. So for example, if you're struggling financially, you might be told, well, just write an affirmation that says, I am wealthy. I am wealthy. But the problem is that if you do not believe you are wealthy, right, to your point, I just don't believe it's working for me. Then if you say I am wealthy, but you're actually struggling financially, then you're creating an internal conflict that's unhealthy, right? It's like, I am wealthy. And then your subconscious goes, no, you're not, you're broke. And you're going, no, stop it, self. I'm doing my affirmations, right? So there's this internal struggle. The second problem with affirmations, the way they've been taught, is we've been taught to use this flowery, passive language that produces an almost magical result independent of any effort. And I joked about it earlier. There's a popular affirmation that goes something like this: I am a money magnet. Money flows to me effortlessly and in abundance. And that's actually a popular affirmation for whatever reason. I think my theory as to why people like that is because if you're struggling financially and your finances are a major source of stress for you, and you look at your bank balance in the morning, you're like, oh God, I'm overdrawn. I need to do my affirmations. And then you go, I am a money magnet. You go, God, that feels a lot better than my reality. And then you go, money's going to flow into my life effortlessly and in abundance. You go, oh, that's so much better than my reality. So we delude ourselves into this. Again, it's not reality. But it feels better than the reality. So for me, affirmations and visualization, which we'll get to in a minute, they've got to be rooted in truth. They've got to be practical, results-oriented, actionable. Like I'm a very, like you, I think, James, I'm a very logical person, right? And so I don't want affirmations that sound good or make me feel better in the short term. I want affirmations that realign my conscious thought and my behavior while reprogramming my subconscious mind to develop and sustain the beliefs that I need that will keep me on the right track. So here are 3 steps. These are the 3 steps that I teach in the book to create practical, actionable, results-oriented affirmations. Step 1, affirm what you're committed to, right? In life, don't say, I am wealthy if you're not wealthy. Say, I'm committed to becoming wealthy. I'm committed to exercising 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week. I'm committed to losing 10 pounds. Like whatever you're fully committed to, that's the only way you get what you want in your life is based on that unwavering commitment. Step 2, affirm why it's a must for you. So what are the reasons that are so meaningful for you that you're willing to do whatever it takes? I'll give you a real life example during the cancer journey. Step 1, what are you committed to? I wrote down, and I read this every day, James, I am committed to beating cancer and living to be 100 plus years old alongside Ursula and the kids. No matter what, there is no other option. And when I first got diagnosed with cancer, I was terrified, right? I mean, the odds were, I was going to die, and I was already halfway there, right? My organs were already shutting down. And I figured, what if I do everything right and I still die? Wayne Dyer, someone who I aspire to be like in many ways, he got leukemia. I would consider him to be as evolved, if not, or far more evolved than I am. And he died. So I thought, oh my God, what if he did everything that he knew and he still died? And what if I die? But I realized that fear is not serving me. And you can apply that to every area of your life. Your fear of the economy right now and that, what's happening and where your business is going. Fear does not serve us to live in that state of fear. So I realized I need to override that fear with faith. And so whenever I felt afraid, I would pull out my affirmations, and this was every day during my miracle morning, but then throughout the day, before bed, you name it. And I would pull them out, James. And here's the point. You mentioned, I don't believe they're going to work for me. Well, I didn't know I had a lack of belief that I was going to be able to beat the cancer. So I read the affirmations with such conviction. I am committed to beating cancer and living to be 100 plus years old alongside Ursula and the kids. No matter what, there is no other option. And I would read it again, and I would read it again, and I would read it again.
Out loud.
And out loud, and with energy, and I would embody that affirmation, so it became my reality. And that's what happened. After a few weeks of this, the fear literally disappeared. I replaced it with this unwavering commitment and conviction to beat cancer. And literally, I forgot that I had been afraid, because this became my new reality. And that's how you can use affirmations to reprogram your subconscious mind to be in alignment with what you're committed to.
So let me ask, during this period, were there any setbacks, in the sense that they said to you, hey, it looks like it got a little bit worse? Was there anything to make you waver in your belief?
Totally. And what it was, there were multiple times where I got so sick. Chemotherapy destroys your immune system. It kills your red blood cells, I believe it is, which is what stages an immune response when you have an infection. So when you are on chemo, you have zero immune system, literally. And so if you get an infection, your body cannot fight it like it normally would, like a normal person. So it can only be fought synthetically with antibiotics. And so your body, it's like this battleground now, where it's there's an infection, you can't fight. So then the doctors throw antibiotics in, right? Which makes you even sicker and hurts you even more. So there were many nights where I was, I had 104-degree fever. My dad was rushing me to the ER. I was sick as a dog, and at this point, my body went from 167 pounds to 125 pounds. I lost 40 pounds in 3 weeks. So I looked like I was on death's doorway, and I was on death's doorway. And there were so many times where I felt so sick, which, how when you feel sick, even with the flu, your mental, it really messes with your mindset. So to be as sick as I was for as long as I was and looking the way that I did, it was a constant struggle to maintain an optimal mindset. And I'll tell you this, and I think this is really, really important. That to me is the ultimate benefit of the miracle morning, is that whatever your number one or, number 2, 3, and 4, but let's just say your top goals, the most important outcomes that you have in your life, the 6 practices of the miracle morning, those are the 6 most timeless, proven personal development practices in history. And when you any one of those can change or save your life. But when you focus your goal, like for me, it was beat cancer at that time. That's all that mattered. I had no financial goals. I didn't have a marriage goal. It didn't matter. If I didn't beat cancer, nothing else mattered. So I focused my savers. All 6 of the Miracle Morning practices were focused on beating cancer. I meditated in a state of healing every day. I followed this affirmations formula to beat cancer every day. I visualized being healthy every day. I exercised every day. I read books on natural ways of beating cancer every day. I journaled right? So all 6 practices. And to me, it accelerates and it amplifies your ability to achieve whatever it is that your outcome is. And so, yes, I was scared. Yes, I was sick. Yes, there were many setbacks along the way.
But still, even when it felt like you were taking a dip in the wrong direction or you had 104 fever, you used the word faith. Like there's this one sentence in the book of Job that I really like, which is somebody tells him to take his thoughts into captivity. And it's sort of like when your things are bad, you have to don't let your thoughts run wild. Take them into captivity so you could recognize what's happening and change them. And that's essentially what you did.
Yeah, I'm reading a book right now by John Gordon, The One Truth, and it was a great distinction. I forgot who he said he learned this from, but he said it was the best advice he ever got. And the guy said, I don't listen to my thoughts. He said, I don't listen to myself, I talk to myself. He said, when I listen to myself, I listen to fears, I listen to doubts, I listen to insecurities, I listen to excuses. When I talk to myself, I tell myself exactly what I need to hear to move forward and achieve everything that I want in my life.
But it's like a muscle. Like you have to practice it. Like you have to do the Miracle Morning every day. Like when I look at the testimonials and also your story, it's people are doing these 6 practices every day and then they see results. It's like we were talking before the podcast about stand-up comedy. Sometimes people do it once and say, oh, I've done stand-up comedy. No, you have to do it every day for years and then you start to get better at it. But it's the same thing with this idea of taking thoughts into captivity or, with these belief and affirmations and visualization and all that. You have to kind of really discipline your mind. It's very easy to do the self-talk like, oh my God, 104 fever, I wish I were dead right now, or this is it. It's probably really easy to slip into that.
Well, and that's why affirmations are my favorite of the savers. Of the 6 practices of the Miracle Morning, affirmations are my favorite because it's the whole talking to yourself. I get to design the precise language that serves my highest good. And once it's in writing, then all the negative thoughts, all the fear, all the self-doubt, I can transcend all of that by pulling my affirmations, picking up that piece of paper that I printed out, right? Or looking on my phone, wherever the affirmations are. I like them printed in my hand. But those affirmations, they keep me on course. They reset and redirect my mindset to be optimal in the midst of, the fears and the insecurities and all those things. And so that to me, being able to design the precise language and then, I edit them, I evolve over time. As you learn, grow, and evolve, your affirmations should also evolve with you. So I'm always updating my affirmations to be in alignment with what's next.
Oh my gosh, I love these clothes. Mizzen and Main, that's Mizzen and Main. It really is the most comfortable work clothes. Travel clothes. I had to travel this whole week. I'm traveling for a week and a half, and I just took Mizzen and Main clothes with me. Close out 2023 in style with comfortable, breathable, packable, and machine washable pieces from Mizzen and Main. As you wrap up your year-end goals, enjoy a Mizzen and Main dress shirt that you can wear confidently. I like that they've very, very just nice, solid colors. I don't really like to get all fancy in patterns and everything, although they do have some pattern shirts, but very comfortable clothes, stretchable pants. It's just super comfortable, but they look professional and you can wear them casually or professionally. I like some of their flannel shirts or untuck shirts. I love untuck. I never tuck in. So again,
whether you're shopping for a special someone or giving yourself the gift you really want, I just buy myself gifts. Mizzen in Maine is the perfect gift for any guy who works, travels, and or cares about looking and feeling great. As you could tell by my many photos across the internet, I care about looking fantastic. I'm practically a model. And let's be honest, every guy loves to look great. So again, shop now at mizzenandmaine.com and save 20% when you spend $130 or more using promo code James. That's promo code James at Mizzen and Maine, Mizzen and Maine.com.
You know what I love about fantasy sports is that even though I'm not going to be a great basketball player or a baseball player or a football player or whatever, I feel like I get to participate and make decisions and use my knowledge of these different leagues or these different sports to compete. So it's like I can pick my team or I can pick my favorite players and I could use my knowledge to make predictions and maybe even make money. So with the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League on Prize Picks. This is a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. Want to play alongside some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, who's also been a guest on this podcast, and I've been a guest on his? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries for some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each week. Look, Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. For football and basketball games, if you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an injury insurance policy. What? So I love playing it. I love anywhere where I can use analytical ability with my interests to demonstrate some skill and maybe make some money. And I like the game-like aspect. I do wish they had chess as a category on prizepicks.com, but I'll settle for what they've got. Maybe I should make my own fantasy chess league. But in any case, I love Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/James. Use code James for a first deposit match up to $100. That's the easiest $100 you're ever going to make. So that's prizepicks.com/James and use code James. Daily fantasy sports made easy. So like I've written many times about this concept of how I write 10 ideas a day. So every day I'll write down 10 ideas. And when I first was over 20 years ago, or about 20 years ago, when I was totally broke and financially struggling, I would write 10 ideas, basically how to make money. Here's 10 books I could write. Here's 10 articles I could write. Here's 10 businesses I could start. Here, if I like one of those business ideas, here's 10 next steps for those businesses. And it reminds me a little of the affirmations in this one way. It's like that thing called the Honda effect. Like once you buy a Honda, you see every other Honda on the road. Previously, you never saw any Hondas, but once you buy a Honda, it seems like you're seeing 20 Hondas an hour on the road. And so I'm wondering if like when you make an affirmation, you start to notice more the things in your life that could help you and that are benefiting you as opposed to the things that are hurting you. Like with the ideas, once I wrote 10 ideas down, I started note everything around me seemed like, oh, that's just like this idea I just wrote down. There's proof that I could do this or whatever. So I started noticing things more that would help me move forward.
Yeah, no, that's completely true. And I'll give you an example of how that shows up for me. My affirmations, right, they're like an anchor. You know, they're like an anchor. You always come back to this precise language that serves your highest good. So when I'm reading books very, very often, I'll read a book and I'll read a quote, you know, like there'll be a line in a book or even a few sentences, and I'll go, oh my gosh, that's very much in alignment with what I need to be affirming every day. And so I will go to my affirmations on Microsoft Word and I will type in that exact quote from that author into the proper, you know, part of the affirmations where it is definitely in alignment. So yeah, it's a really good point, that Honda effect of, once you have your affirmations in place, then you start to notice what are other ideas or concepts or beliefs that are in alignment with what I'm affirming that improve or enhance my current affirmations.
Yeah, because like let's say you make this affirmation and you're very firm and you're loud and you say it out loud. By the way, there's a lot of research that says when you say things out loud like that, it has more of an effect on your mind and body and so on. A.J. Jacobs actually researched that. And when you do this, you're probably noticing throughout the day, oh yes, this will help me achieve my affirmation, but this won't. And so it's probably easier for you to have the Honda effect regarding the activities during the day that are actually helping you.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is you mentioned doing this every day, right? It's very much like exercising. You know, if you work out one time, it's not you're going to have very minimal benefit, right? If you read an affirmation
except for me,
one time,
you could tell like I'm jacked, but
you're jacked from that one workout you did 3 years ago. Yeah,
during COVID.
Yeah, during COVID. No, but the affirmations, when you read them every day, it literally, you're reprogramming your mindset. You're reprogramming your subconscious mind and your conscious thoughts. And so that's what I mentioned with the cancer example is I went from being afraid that I might die, that I could die, what if, that I completely moved, like pushed that fear out because the affirmations became my reality because I read them every single day. That became my internal dialogue.
Well, I'm glad you got through that incident. I'm really sorry you had to go through it. I mean, it was shocking even just reading about it because you obviously were posting your story online. And so you mentioned you had this story in the book about Roger Bannister, who's the first guy to succeed with the 4-minute mile. He ran a mile faster than 4 minutes. He broke a world record. And since then, everybody's done it. But like he somehow broke this mental barrier that people thought that was like a floor you couldn't break through. Yeah. And you mentioned how he would visualize every day the process of becoming the sort of person who can run a 4-minute mile. And I think that's part of it too. Like you can't just visualize a bag of money arriving from UPS.
Yep.
You have to sort of visualize, it's like you called it rehearsal almost. You have to visualize you specifically becoming the person who can survive cancer or run a 4-minute mile or make money after going broke. Like you can't, it's not a hope or a wish. It's a strategy really.
Yeah.
And am I interpreting it correctly? Like that's how I interpret it.
Yeah. Visualization, it's similar to affirmations in the way we've been taught it, I think is counterproductive. So we've been taught to, make a vision board, which really is just visualize the end result. And that's important, but it's only half the equation, if you will. And to me, it's the less important half. And what I mean by that is, so step one, visualize your ideal outcome, right? Yes, see it, feel it, because that does generate emotions that will pull you toward it or push you toward it. Like when I was training for an ultra marathon, I hated running, but I would visualize crossing the finish line every day, and that compelled me to want to make that experience a reality. The problem is if that's all you do is visualize the end goal, you can actually trick yourself into thinking that it's a foregone conclusion independent of any effort on your part, right? So for example, somebody visualizes—
that's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. And then the vision board is even more passive. Like that's just like making a board, putting it on the wall and being like, all right, well, the secret told me that all those things were going to come true. The second step in visualization to me is the most important. And you mentioned it earlier, mental rehearsal. And if you think about the world's greatest athletes, Roger Bannister being one of them, they swear by visualization. But this second step is the piece that I think goes untaught in the self-help world. And it's the most important part. It's mentally rehearsing yourself doing the thing you need to do today, taking the action today that will move you in the direction of your long-term vision.
That word today is the key because he can't just sort of visualize himself running past the finish line and then looking at his watch. Oh, it's 3 minutes, 56 seconds. He has to visualize what is he going to do today, again, to become the sort of person who could— I think that's the key. I can't just visualize, oh, it feels so good putting this check in the bank.
Yep.
I've got to visualize what am I going to do today to move myself closer to that.
And it's visualizing what you're going to do today, mentally rehearsing it while putting yourself in a peak mental and emotional state. So again, world's greatest athletes, they mentally rehearse themselves going through the motions, being on the court, performing at their best, responding to adversity, etc. And then how am I going to respond if this happens in the game? How am I going to respond if there's 10 seconds left and we're down by 2? How am I going to swing the club on this, right? Tiger Woods would say he would mentally rehearse golfing the entire 18 holes or whatever course he was going to. And so if you bring that away from athletics, because most of us aren't professional athletes, and you just imagine visualizing yourself doing the thing that you need to do, whether it's playing with your kids today, or it's getting on the phone and making cold calls. Visualize yourself doing the activity, and then put yourself in a peak mental and emotional state so that you're excited. And I can use affirmations sometimes to go, I'm going to do this. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to go for this run today. I don't like running, but that doesn't matter, because by running today, I'm becoming stronger and faster. And it's great. You get yourself really, almost pumped up in a positive way while you see yourself doing the thing. And that way, when it's time to do the thing, you're ready to go.
Yeah. And, the reason I asked about how did you do this when those inevitable days, and I obviously do this every day. Obviously, you've had lots of problems in your life like anybody, but this cancer was life-threatening. And so I'll bring it back to that again for a second. But, Mike Tyson says everybody's got a plan until they're hit in the face.
Punched in the face.
And so do you rehearse what you're going to do on the moments when you have that inevitable, you're hit in the face, like you have, in this case, your fever spikes and it looks dangerous and the doctors think this is it? Like, do you rehearse in your mind what we're going to do when things go negative, or do you only stick to positive?
Yeah, not so much. I think that depends on the context. Like, again, I'm a fan of mixed martial arts. And so I've heard a lot of mixed martial arts fighters will say that they will, mentally rehearse, like, if things aren't going well, how are they going to respond? For me, typically, I'm mentally rehearsing doing the thing I need to do to take one step closer to my goal. So, for example, when I was training for that ultra marathon, I would visualize the alarm on my phone going off at 7 a.m. So I would literally be sitting there doing my Miracle Morning on my couch in front of my coffee table where my phone was sitting. I would close my eyes and I would imagine the phone right in front of me. I'd imagine it beeping at 7 a.m. I would hear it, I would see it. And then I would visualize myself picking the phone up, turning off the alarm, going into my bedroom, and then getting dressed in my running clothes. It was like a little 2-minute movie I would see in my mind. Then I would head out my front, walk, and I can still see it, by the way. I visualized this for 6 months. I can still see the visualization over and over and over. I'd then walk through my living room, put my hand on the front door, open the front door. I would see the sidewalk where I was going to run. And then I would bring out my affirmations. I'm committed to completing a 52-mile ultra marathon because no matter what, there is no other option. Step 2, why is it a must for me? I'm committed because it's enabling me to become the person that I need to be to overcome any obstacle and create any result that I want in my life. Step 3, which we didn't get to earlier, which specific actions will you take and when? In order to do this, I will follow the training plan in the book, The Non-Runner's Marathon Trainer, to a T, 5 days a week, no matter what. So I would be there visualizing and affirming as I pictured the pavement, and I would get myself excited to go for that run while I was sitting on my couch. And then here's what happened. When the alarm went off on my phone at 7 a.m. in real time, human nature would be, oh, God, I hate running. I'll just do it tomorrow, right? And how often do we do that? We put off the thing we know we should do because I can skip a day. But here's the thing, James, I didn't mentally rehearse procrastinating. I didn't visualize not running. So it's almost as if the visualization is programming you. I became like a robot. When the alarm went off, I turned it off, stood up, went into my bedroom, got dressed in my running clothes, went out my living room, opened the front door. I was flooded with the affirmations and the emotions that I created during my visualization that morning. Again, this is real time now. And then I was excited to go for that run because I generated those positive emotions and that excitement when I visualized during the morning. And you can apply this in any area of your life. When I'm on the weekends, when my kids are going to be coming out, I will visualize my kids walking out of their bedroom. I did this more when they were little. I don't do it quite as much anymore. I probably should, but I'll use it with my wife as well. But I'll visualize them coming out, and I'll visualize how I'm going to respond, how I'm going to interact and engage. Because I noticed in the past, I'd be like, oh man, they're out here. Crap. I still wanted to keep doing my miracle morning, right? That doesn't serve my kids. So I'd mentally rehearse as soon as I saw them, how was I going to feel? What was I going to say? How was I going to interact with them? I'd mentally rehearse that on a Saturday morning. And then when they came out, I was ready to go. And I, by default, like a robot, without the negative connotation, I was like, hey guys, like, what's up? It's whatever I rehearsed that morning. And so you can apply this to your business goals, to engaging with your spouse, to your fitness goals, any area of your life, whatever you need to do today to achieve that long-term vision, mentally rehearse it. And it only takes a few minutes. Like, that's it. It's really simple.
And you started doing all this or thinking about this way back. You were like 20 years old and you had this car accident where you were essentially dead. Were you officially dead, or like what happened?
Yeah. So I was hit head on by a drunk driver at 70 miles an hour. I was then broadsided by a second vehicle, an innocent family behind me. I spun in front of them and they hit me in the door, my driver's side door, at 70 miles an hour. And I broke 11 bones instantaneously. And I started losing a lot of blood, and it took the paramedics and the fire department, they had to use the jaws of life to tear the roof off of the car. And it took them 50 minutes from the time the accident happened. So almost an hour that I was sitting in that car, trapped and losing blood. And I eventually, when they pulled me out of the car, I lost so much blood that I was dead. I died. My heart stopped beating. I stopped breathing, and I was clinically dead for approximately 6 minutes while they loaded me onto a helicopter and they revived me. And thankfully, they were able to get my heart beating again after 6 minutes. They sent me to I airlifted me to the hospital.
How'd they get you breathing again?
They just used so they hooked me up to an IV to get blood back in my body. And then they put oxygen on my face, and they used the defibrillators to shock me back to life. I spent 6 days in a coma. I flatlined twice more. So it was very critical condition. I technically died 3 times. Once was extended for 6 minutes, and then I flatlined twice more in the hospital. And then I came out of the coma 6 days later, and the doctor said I had permanent brain damage and that I would never walk again. And so when I woke up, that was the reality I faced, is I have 11 broken bones, permanent brain damage, and the doctors are saying that I'm probably never going to walk again.
And so obviously when he says this is a doctor in a professional setting. Mm-hmm. At that moment, you couldn't walk. At that moment, maybe you felt a little foggy. I don't know what you felt in your brain.
Very foggy, yeah.
But you probably believed him, and it probably depressed you.
No. Well, interestingly enough, I for sure was kind of like the cancer diagnosis. Initially I was like, oh my, I was like, it was hard to even comprehend that this was not a dream or a nightmare, right? I'm like, wait, I'm 20 years old. I'm never going to walk again. I'll be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. But after a few days of processing it, I decided I can't change that I was in a car accident. I can't change that I broke 11 bones. I may or may not be able to walk again. That is to me, it was undecided. And I decided I'm going to accept the worst case scenario. If I never walk again, I decided I'll be the happiest, most grateful person that you've ever seen in a wheelchair. Because I'm in a wheelchair either way. So I will never let the unchangeable circumstances in my life determine the changeable mindset that I get to choose.
Gosh, it's so hard to think that way, though. It's so hard to practice.
Well, I'll tell you, and I know we've talked about this, I'm sure, at some point in our conversations, but the reason I was able to get there is I learned something in my Cutco sales training a year and a half prior called the 5-minute rule. And the 5-minute rule simply stated that when something goes wrong, it's okay to be negative and feel sorry for yourself, but not for more than 5 minutes. And I was literally taught by my manager, my mentor, Jesse. He said, and now to be fair, the context was much milder than this car accident, right? It was like, customers being rude to you or canceling an order, but still, it was things that upset you mentally and emotionally. And he taught us, set your timer for 5 minutes, and you get 5 minutes to bitch, moan, complain, cry, vent, like feel sorry for yourself. But when the timer goes off, he taught us to say 3 very powerful words. Can't change it. And it's a simple acknowledgement. This applies to every aspect of life. When something happens that upsets you, whether it's waking up from a coma and being told you're never going to walk again, whether it's hitting traffic when you don't want to be late, whether it's going bankrupt, losing, and I've applied this to cancer. I've applied this to every aspect of my life. It's the idea that when something happens and you can't change it, you have one of two choices. Number one, you can continue to wish it were different, wish it didn't happen, resist reality. But what you find is that that's actually the cause of emotional pain, is resisting reality and wishing you could change something that is unchangeable. And if it's already happened, it's unchangeable. It's 5 minutes ago.
This is such a valuable service for all business owners, big businesses, small businesses, doesn't matter. I wish I had this in the many different businesses that I've started. Sometimes it seems like your business is humming, but then suddenly you don't understand it. You're starting to fall behind. You're not understanding where your costs are, where your revenues are, where your payments are. Teams are buried in all sorts of like BS work, and you can't seem to close the books. So you need like one dashboard, one source of truth. I'm jealous of this business, NetSuite from Oracle, of course, NetSuite by Oracle. I wish I'd come up with this idea. It's a brilliant concept to have all your business intelligence on one dashboard. This is why you need to know these three numbers: 37,000, 25, and 1. So 37,000, that's the number of businesses which have upgraded to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the number one cloud financial system, streamlining accounting, financial management, inventory, HR, and more. 25. NetSuite turns 25 this year. That's 25 years of helping businesses do more with less, close their books in days, not weeks, and drive down costs. 1, because your business is one of a kind. So you get a customized solution for all of your key performance indicators, your KPIs, in one efficient system with one source of truth. Manage risk, get reliable forecasts, and improve margins. Everything you need to grow all in one place. So right now, download NetSuite's popular KPI checklist designed to give you consistently excellent performance absolutely free at netsuite.com/James. That's netsuite.com/James to get your own KPI checklist. netsuite.com/James. The future of learning is definitely online. Like, it's such BS that you have to spend $200,000 or take $200,000 in loans and go to some fancy school when it's useless. It doesn't guarantee you a job. Most employers, including me, do not care about degrees or grades or anything like that. We want to care that you love what you're doing, that you know what you're doing, in some cases that you have experience or that you're willing to learn. But people in general love learning and are curious. Like, the key to success is curiosity. And I think masterclass.com is the perfect model for online learning. I'm really happy they're sponsoring this episode. If you're going to give a gift, give the gift of learning. Masterclass makes a meaningful gift this season for you and anyone on your list, because both of you can learn from the best to become your best, from leadership to effective communication to cooking. Let me tell you some of the classes I've taken. I've taken comedy from Steve Martin. I mean, can you believe I can take a class from Steve Martin on comedy, or Judd Apatow, my favorite comedy director? I could take an actual class from him on writing. Wolfgang Puck on cooking. Dan Brown on writing, or Judy Bloom, who's been on this podcast, on writing. By the way, Wolfgang Puck also has been on this podcast. It's such a pleasure. I try to take classes all the time from masterclass.com. And whether you're watching Masterclass on TV or listening in audio mode in the app or on their site, the quality speaks for itself. It's like these Masterclass instructors are your own personal mentors that are going to help you reach the next level. How much would it cost to take one-on-one classes on comedy from Steve Martin, or on chess from Gary Kasparov? You just wouldn't be able to do it. But it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. With a Masterclass annual membership, it's $10 a month. Memberships start at $120 a year for unlimited access to one-on-one classes with all 180 plus Masterclass instructors. So it's not just $120 for one instructor. You get all 180 plus masterclass instructors. Boost your confidence and find practical takeaways you can apply to your life and at work. And if you own a business or are a team leader, use Masterclass to empower and create future-ready employees and leaders. That's the real education in today's world. So this holiday season, you can give one annual membership and get one free at masterclass.com/JAS. JAS, of course, stands for the James Altucher Show. So right now you can get 2 memberships for the price of one at masterclass.com/JAS. Masterclass.com/JAS. Offer terms apply. Let's say you have an incident where your boss treats you horribly,
Yeah.
and you start to think like, oh, how could he or she do that to me? Like did this, this. You start to really dwell on it.
Yep.
And it's not like he's gonna, that's who this boss is. Like,
Yep.
it's not like they're gonna change their behavior. And if you try talking to him or her, it still won't change their behavior. Will do you no well, good. And you think, well, I should quit. If you can't change it, maybe you should quit the job. But let's say you can't for whatever reason, like you need to pay your mortgage, there's no other jobs in the area, whatever it is.
Yeah. So here's what I would say is that the 5-minute rule, and the time frame is arbitrary, right? 5 minutes. If you lose a loved one, right? I don't expect you to, it's healthy to grieve for a lot longer than 5 minutes. But here's the point is this. It's the understanding that every painful emotion that we have ever experienced in our lives has been self-created by, as I mentioned, the resistance to reality. And here's how you know that's true. Imagine the exact same thing happens to 2 different people, okay? Same exact experience, and we can use the boss as the example, right? The boss, so this 2 people have this boss, and he treats both of them terribly, right? Person number 1 goes, they're resisting reality. They go, gosh, this boss is such a jerk. I wish he were different. I wish he didn't treat me the way that he does. It's so unfair the way he treats me, right? They're resisting reality. Like, look, you wishing he didn't treat you doesn't change the way he treats you. It just causes you to be frustrated and angry and upset. Now, person number 2, right? Maybe they're totally calm, and the person number 1's going, aren't you mad? He's such a jerk to us. And they go, yeah, but we can't change him. So what's the point in allowing him to determine how we feel? That seems like a waste of energy. I'm going to choose to be at peace with what I can't change, which is my boss, so that I can enjoy this one life that I've been blessed to live, and look, until I can find another job, I got to deal with him. I'm not going to, it's hard. It's bad enough to listen to him, but if I allow listening to him make me feel horrible inside, that's giving him all my power, and I'm not willing to do that.
This is really great how this is. I really like this philosophy, and this applies to all 6 practices in the Savers routine, but I really had these questions about affirmations and visualization. But the first S is about silence. Every morning you wake up and find at least 10 minutes to be silent, whether it's meditation or prayer or just silence, but no phones, no nothing.
And real quick, I want to just correct you on one piece there, which is you said at least 10 minutes. And this is a really important thing that I've learned over the years teaching the Miracle Morning is my very first Miracle Morning was 60 minutes. And for a long time, I would talk about the Miracle Morning only the way that I did it. And I have a good friend, Brianna Greenspan. She's actually now the director of education for the Miracle Morning. She's brought it to hundreds of schools, mostly in New York City.
I feel like I've seen her name. Maybe
you've met Brianna. You guys are both in the Miracle Morning movie, actually. But Brianna is the one that pointed out to me that she's like, Hal, you need to explain to people that they don't have to be like you. They don't have to do your Miracle Morning. So there's a chapter in the new edition of the book. It's called the 6-minute Miracle Morning. And it literally teaches you how to do all 6 of the savers, the entire Miracle Morning, in a total of 6 minutes. So you can do 1 minute of silence and just say a quick prayer or meditate or calm your nervous system, 1 minute of affirmations and so on through the rest of the savers.
You're right. I read that in the book, the 1 minute idea, and I was thinking more of like when you first started doing it, you set aside
10 minutes,
60 minutes for 10 minutes for each one. So sorry for the confusion.
No,
there.
no problem.
But so there's the silence, there's the affirmations, there's the visualization. exercise, reading, scribing.
Yeah.
And I think this silence makes a lot of sense. I think the reason I had the questions on the affirmations and the visualizations is that that's what personally I grapple with. Like, obviously, some moments of just like free time where you don't have your book or you're not immersed in like responding to stuff is great. So that's the silence. The exercise is sort of obvious, and it's striking how many people don't do it. And even though there's clear benefits to health, reading is a practice I've always done. I could tell you read enormously because, again, you've probably read every self-help book on the planet to kind of really take all the ideas into your mental laboratory and distill them down into the miracle morning. Who do you think are like the most legit self-help writers in history, really?
In history, that's a broad,
which means really like the past 100 years.
Yeah. I mean, for sure, James Clear with Atomic Habits. I mean, that book has become an anomaly in terms of just the impact that it's made for people. And James has such a great way of communicating. Actually, I'll tell you, I don't know if you know about this book. It comes out tomorrow, but this is quickly becoming one of my favorite books of all time. Arete. Are you familiar with this?
No.
You should go pre-order it today, James.
Wow.
Brian Johnson. It's 1,001 pages long. It's 451 mini chapters, and
I love how he calls it Volume 1.
Yeah,
it gives it this historical context.
It's brilliant. I mean, he's amazing. So this is one of my favorite books. I mean, I'm only a little bit into the 1,001 pages, but it is phenomenal, and it's 451 chapters long. So there's 451 mini chapters, and there's actually a Miracle Morning chapter in here, which is kind of cool. But that's one of my favorites. Some of my favorite authors, Michael Singer, who wrote The Untethered Soul, The Surrender Experiment.
On my podcast.
Oh, has he really?
Yeah, I've stayed in his compound where you went
out there and meditated with him.
Yeah,
that is cool. That's a bucket list item for me. I'm Michael Singer, big fan of Michael Singer. Of course, Think and Grow Rich. I mean, God, there's so many good authors, and I always draw a blank when I get asked who are my favorites.
What do you? I asked this to Oliver Berkman, who wrote The Antidote, which is kind of like an anti-self-help book. Like he's just critical of the whole industry. But I asked him, because he met Eckhart Tolle or Tolle, however, and I said, is he the real deal? And Oliver Berkman thought he was like the one guy he met who was the real deal. Like he really like lives in the now. And he's very similar to Michael Singer in terms of philosophy.
Totally. I think that for, at least for me personally, I've done the Miracle Morning. I'd say I average more than 6 days a week, because the only time I don't do it is if I'm up late for some reason, like for a date night or a concert or something like that. But I estimate I've done over 4,500 Miracle Mornings over the last 15 years. It's something that I do every single day. And I do think that is important as an author or as a teacher. It's one thing just to teach something, right? Because you get it or you understand it. But it's another thing to actually live it so that I think that's a big reason that I wrote the updated and expanded edition, or I know, but is that I've been doing the Miracle Morning for 15 years. Well, when I first wrote the Miracle Morning, I'd been doing the Miracle Morning for like 6 months. So I was still pretty new to each of the savers. And I was writing from a place of like, hey, here's a really simple way to do meditation, even if you've never meditated before. I think that's why the book, one of the reasons it stuck is because I was really bringing people in that were only a step behind me, right? Like, hey, I wasn't some advanced practitioner, because I think once you've been doing something for so long, you often lose sight of the beginner's mindset. And so now 15 years later, it was like, I have evolved, my practices have evolved so much over the last 15 years that the updated and expanded edition was, I wanted to, hey, if you're brand new, here's where you start, but I want to show you what this looks like, how you can evolve to more advanced. I teach this thing called emotional optimization meditation. It's my favorite form of meditation. And it's rather than just following your breath, you're actually identifying what is the optimal mental and emotional state that would serve my highest good today. And then I walk you through how to get into that state and then meditate in that state. So whether it's joy and happiness or confidence or playfulness or forgiveness or focus, whatever it is, you are hardwiring your optimal mental and emotional states every single morning so that, you talked about who you become. You're literally becoming the person that can maintain those optimal states throughout the day.
Yeah, that's great. And that's so important to do during the ebbs and cycles of a day where we, crash and lift ourselves up and then crash again. And it's so good to practice that in the morning to start the day going. And, uh, you talk about the 2008 to 2010 period where obviously it was the financial crisis.
Mm.
Your business was having problems. You were having problems making your bills. You were losing your house. I've certainly had scenarios like this, and it was affecting your relationship too with your wife Ursula, who has
Yeah.
stood by you through so many things.
So many things.
Yeah. And how did you use techniques to kind of lift yourself up during that time? Again, I'm focusing on these moments when you're hit in the face, when it's
Yeah.
really hard to you could preach all you want, but not you specifically, but
Yeah.
it's just hard to follow these ideas that are so uplifting when you just don't feel uplifted at all. You don't have the energy at that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's when they are the most important, right? I mean, that's when we need them the most. Well, so 2008, the financial crash, that is why I created the Miracle Morning. I was like, millions of Americans. I lost over half of my income, right? My business was failing. I was deep in debt. My first house that I had ever purchased a year and a half prior was now being foreclosed on and taken back by the bank. And as you mentioned, I was a mess. I was depressed. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. And I felt out of control. And
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Were you afraid Ursula was going to leave you because you were losing the house?
Honestly, I do not remember. I don't remember if I was afraid. I honestly don't remember if I was afraid. I mean, she was there for me, so I think that loyalty is one of her top values. And so I think that I did know, I'm sure it crossed my mind and I was nervous about it. But overall, I mean, she was very, she would assure me and this and that, I'm not going anywhere. And, here's the thing. She married this happy, fun loving, I'm one of the most energetic, positive people you'd ever meet. And then I was like this scared, depressed shell of a man, if you will. And she was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to help you. I can't help you. And she actually encouraged me to talk to one of my good friends, John Berghoff, because he's very smart. And she said, why don't you call John and ask him for advice? And I called John, and he ended up recommending this Jim Rohn audio. And I listened to the Jim Rohn audio, and I heard a quote. And the quote, I'll share it right now. This quote literally was the catalyst for me to create the Miracle Morning. Jim Rohn said, your level of success will seldom exceed your level of personal development, because success is something you attract by the person you become.
I love that.
And when I heard that, I quantified it immediately. It's how my brain works. I'm a numbers guy, quantified it, and I went, okay, wait a minute. If my level of success is not going to exceed my level of personal development, then there's two questions there. Number one, what level of success do I want? On a scale of 1 to 10, level 10. I don't know anyone that wants a lesser level. I don't want to be too happy or too successful no. We all have an innate drive and desire to achieve this level 10 success in our lives. But then the second question, and this is the gut check, I went, okay, well, if my level of success is not going to exceed my level of personal development, what's my level of personal development? And at that time in my life, I was like, it's a 2, like maybe a 3 or 4 on a good day. And let me define that. To me, personal development is what is your daily personal development ritual that's enabling you to become a better version of yourself, moving toward that level 10 version of you where you have the best mindset you could possibly have, and the skills and the habits and the knowledge that enable you to achieve everything you want for your life. And so to me, that's the disconnect for most of us. I want level 10 success, but my level of personal development, my routine every day is like a 2 or a 3. And so the epiphany for me, James, was I need to figure out what the world's most successful people do for personal development. And I need to create the ultimate level 10 personal development ritual so that I can become the level 10 version of myself who's capable of creating and sustaining the success that I want. And that's where I went online. I researched these 6 practices, what I came up with. I woke up the next morning. I did all 6 pretty poorly. I didn't know how to meditate. They were all new to me. But even doing them poorly, after 1 hour, I went, wow, this is it. If I start every day like this, with this much clarity and energy and motivation and gaining knowledge, it's only a matter of time before I become the person that I need to be that can turn my life around. And to be honest, I was thinking it would be 1 year. Like in my mind, I'm like, I'll give myself a year to turn this around. In less than 2 months. Now, James, keep in mind, this was at the height of the Great Recession. The economy continued to get worse. I doubled my income in less than 2 months because of the Miracle Morning. And I went to my wife and I said, sweetheart.
And is that because you had more energy, so you were making more calls and networking more and meeting more people for lunch, dinner, whatever?
So it's honestly the sequence of all of the practices. So let's start with reading, okay? I ordered a book online by Michael Port called Book Yourself Solid. And it was basically teaching service-based businesses how to get more clients. So that was like the starting place. Okay, I'm going to get a book on how to get more clients. Then I used my meditation practice to get in a peak mental and emotional state every morning so that I could implement what it is that I was learning. Then I took the main points in the book and I translated them into affirmations that clarified what I was committed to, why it was a must for me, and what I was going to do. Then I visualized, AKA mentally rehearsed myself doing the things that I had just affirmed that would get me where I wanted to go. And then I used my journaling practice, right, every day to look at my to-do list. And instead of doing the easy things, the busy work, which too many of us are guilty of doing, I went, okay, what's the number one thing on my list every day that I need to do that's going to move the needle and get me clients? So it was literally stacking all 6 of the practices. And the exercise, of course, just gave me some, energy and got me in shape and all that. But it was stacking the practices and sequencing them together that enabled me to, implement what I was learning in the book every single day, take action, generate motivation, generate energy, and then I got the results that I wanted.
Yeah, and then I'm going to fast forward to another time in your life where you were having some troubles, the 2019, 2020 maybe it was, where you were having trouble sleeping. You were sleeping only 2-3 hours a night. Do you know why you were sleeping so few hours?
My guess is because of chemotherapy, but I'm not, chemotherapy, it's something that they call it chemo brain, where it's basically chemotherapy is poison. And it is poisoning your body. And one of my an oncology nurse told me this. I said this earlier. It actually came from her. She said, Hal, I'm going to be straight with you. She kind of looked, side to side and leaned in. She's like, look, she's like, chemotherapy is poison. Okay. It's killing you right now. It is killing you. And I was literally, hooked up to chemo right then. I'm like, okay, this is, I'm like, I already know this, but it's not really encouraging. She said, and let's be honest. The goal is that the chemotherapy kills the cancer before it kills you, and then we can get your body, build you back up so that you can live a life like a normal life.
It's a very good explanation of chemo, actually.
Yeah, it's killing the cancer and it's killing your body. It's killing every part of you, right? You can't kill the cancer without killing your body. It's killing you. But the idea is that you're going to hopefully live. And I forgot, what was your question?
Now you're asking an old man now. So. I was asking about your sleep habits.
Yeah. So they call it chemo brain, which that phrase, it bothers me because of how dismissive my doctors were. They go, oh, that's just chemo brain. Like it's this cute phrase. I go, why don't you say what it is? My brain is being poisoned and now I can't function the way that I used to. After 3 years of chemotherapy, my cognitive abilities declined significantly. To where I feel like my IQ dropped 30 points. And I feel like I was not myself anymore. And
you should have tested it before and after. I should have.
I
know that wasn't like highest on your priority list, but
that would have been fascinating data point for sure. But I went from never in my life have I experienced anxiety. I didn't even know what it felt like. I developed such extraordinary anxiety. And then that led to depression. And I think that, so the chemotherapy, I think caused, the anxiety, the depression, because it was all this vicious cycle where, because my cognitive abilities were there, I was nervous to talk to people. I couldn't have normal conversations anymore. And that made me anxious. Then the anxiety caused depression. And it was this vicious cycle and I was depressed that my brain felt like it was not mine anymore. And so I started sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night was my average sleep. And if you ever slept 2 hours in a night, you're a mess the next day. Compound that over 4, 5, 6 months of sleeping 2 to 4 hours every single night. I was hallucinating. I lost my mind and I was suicidal. I wanted to kill myself.
Yeah. I saw in the book, you mentioned you wrote to Ursula one morning and said you wanted to die. You couldn't take it anymore. What was going on like, you're responsible for a big,
Yeah.
social media community around the Miracle Morning. Like, what was going on then? How are you kind of presenting yourself to the group?
Yeah, so I have no problem being vulnerable typically, but the thing was I did have a problem being vulnerable at that time because I was such a mess that I couldn't even think straight. So I was like embodiment of fear. I was afraid of everything. I was scared to get on calls with people that I had known for 20 years. I was scared, and I ended up, that was the year that the Miracle Morning movie was supposed to come out. And so I ended up letting my team go because I couldn't manage them. I would get on calls and be shaking. I was so scared to talk to these people that loved me and that I knew. I was an absolute mess. And so I just did but I had to record a podcast every single week. I had to record the Achieve Your Goals podcast. And so I just did the best I could with who I was. And I will tell you that, 2020, when that happened, and I asked myself, okay, I am, as a leader of the Miracle Morning community and my podcast listeners, what should I be focusing on right now? Because there was so much thrown at us that was out of our control, right? The pandemic and the economy and the this and the that. And what I realized is that when we focus on that which is out of our control, and this is true across all aspects of life, when we focus on that which is out of our control, we feel out of control. And feeling out of control leads to anxiety and stress and depression and so on and so forth. And so I will say that I did double down on a Miracle Morning that year, which is part of what helped me get through the sleeplessness as well, is I realized, okay, I can't control COVID and the economy and all this crazy stuff in the world. I can only control showing up at my best every single day for myself, for those I love, and for those I lead. And that's all I'm going to do. And that's what I encourage my listeners and the Miracle Morning community. I go, guys, look, I know you're scared of this, you're scared of that, you're worried about this. Those things are out of our control. All you can control is double down on your Miracle Morning so that you can show up at your best for those you lead, those you love, and for yourself. And so that's what I did, and that's what our community did. And there are a lot of testimonials of people saying like that got them through the most difficult time in their life.
Well, and also this also resulted in the chapter in this expanded edition, The Miracle Evening, which helped you improve I'll let people read that. I've done several podcasts about sleep, but as you mentioned in The Miracle Evening, having a ritual that helps you sleep healthfully is so important. Like they say, if you sleep 6 hours or less for 3 days in a row, you won't have Alzheimer's, but you'll have symptoms almost similar to like Alzheimer's or dementia. Just 3 days of 6 hours of sleep or less.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I wrote that chapter, is because I started in that chapter about telling my sleep, deprivation, chronic insomnia story. And it's like, because since then I've started asking my audiences when I give keynotes and I speak, I say, how many of you struggle with sleep, either falling asleep or staying asleep? James, it's over half on average. It's half or more of the audience. And I realized what a huge problem it is. And I think, part of my one of my abilities, if you will, is to really communicate information in a way that resonates with people and that is so simple. Because I'm not an intellectual. Like, I'm not someone that has a wildly expansive vocabulary and can talk over your head. Like, I really need to simplify things to make sense for me. And so as an author, I'm able to do that for other people. And so it's similar to how the Miracle Morning has enabled millions of people that never thought they could become a morning person, right? I mean, we've surveyed our audience. It's 72% of Miracle Morning practitioners say they never in their life were a morning person nor believed they could become one. And now they read the book and it completely changed that for them. And so my hope is that this 22-page sleep or Miracle Evening chapter will do the same for people for sleep. Is I'm telling you, these are the simplest, most specific, straightforward, step-by-step practices in the evening that I use to overcome 6 months of chronic insomnia, so I could get a good night's sleep. And I hope it'll work for people as well.
So, and I love that you added the Miracle Evening to your expanded book, The Miracle Morning. And again, it's been 10 years since, the Miracle Morning first came out, millions of copies sold. You've helped so many people, including me. Like, I love this book. And it's one of the few self-help books I think are legit and I really enjoy reading, and I love the ideas behind it. And I feel it overlapped a lot with just my instincts on what a good morning should be. And it really put to words a lot of things.
Mm.
I want to talk about the business of the Miracle Morning for a second. I also love how you kind of franchise the concept. Like, let me read some of the chapter titles. You had other authors essentially write, the Miracle Morning for couples, the Miracle Morning for entrepreneurs, the Miracle Morning for parents, the Miracle Morning for college students, the Miracle Morning for writers, which I wrote the forward to.
That's
Steve
right.
Scott wrote the book, or you and Steve Scott wrote the book. And you've done a really good job just building this business and brand and franchise of the Miracle Morning. How's it going?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going really well, and I want to give credit where credit is due. Early on, when I had the idea for the book series, I met a woman named Honore Corder.
I remember
You
that.
know
Yeah,
Honore. You
yeah.
met Honore. And Honore, she had created a book series called the Successful Single Mom book series. And now she is one of the most prolific authors on teaching authors how to become authors, how to sell a lot of books. That's kind of her niche now because she's done so well. She's written like 40 books. And so I hired her to help me develop the Miracle Morning series. And so she helped me figure out how to create this, this book series, if you will. And so the Miracle Morning, one of the things I've had a lot of authors that have seen me give. I give a speech occasionally. I gave it at Genius Network, and I've given it a couple times. It's called Beyond the Bestseller: How to Write a Book That Creates a Movement, Earns You a Fortune, and Changes the World. And it's based on the premise that many authors are chasing a bestseller list, but that actually doesn't give you what you really want, which is impact and income, like lasting impact and lasting income. I think if any author's honest, that's what they want. We think we want to get on a bestseller list because that'll give us what we want, but it doesn't. There's a lot of best-selling authors that if you look at their book on Amazon, it's ranked, 650,000 on the bestsellers on Amazon. Like it falls into obscurity, even though it was what do they call that? A flash in the pan where it hit the bestseller list. So I talk about how do you write a book that really sustains, if you will, becomes a perennial bestseller. And when I give that speech, I show a graph that shows how long it took for me for the Miracle Morning to take off. And it wasn't an overnight success. It took 18 months of sustained promotion. I had been on over, I think, 200 podcast interviews in those 18 months, done TV interviews. Like my whole life revolved around this Miracle Morning concept. And then it finally took off. And I have so many authors that go, man, you promoted for 18 months before you even got any traction. And now it's sold millions of copies. They go, if I would have promoted my book I only promoted it for 3 months and then I got bored, or then I changed my mind, or then I did something else, or then right. And so my point is this, I believe the Miracle Morning is the most, of anything I've ever created in my life, it's made the biggest impact for people, the most profound impact for people. So it is my life's work. So now the Miracle Morning book series, the Miracle Morning movie, the Miracle Morning app, which, I mean, that alone now, tens of thousands of people use the Miracle Morning app every day. And it's got 2,000 5-star reviews in the App Store. Like, people love that. But the point is, it got really clear that this is my life's work. So every shiny object, every awesome financial opportunity, it's only a yes if it's in alignment with my mission to share the Miracle Morning with more people. Because 2 million people have read the book, 8 billion people are still waiting for me to find a way to share it with them.
You should make a book like The Miracle Movement and write about the process of that talk, basically the concepts of that talk, because that's incredibly valuable. Like, I thought about this concept a lot when I was, after I wrote the book Choose Yourself, and it received a lot of coverage and recognition. And you're totally right. Like, that's the most successful book I've ever written. And it's directly correlated to how much work I put into promoting it after the book. And even before the book came out, I was writing a lot about the concepts. I was basically promoting a lot before I even wrote the book, and then I was on podcasts for years talking about it. And that's directly correlated to the success of it. But I thought about some of these ideas that you're talking about, but I ultimately, it wasn't the right thing for me. And But I really admire how you did it with the Miracle Morning. You've done such a good job. Like you hired community leaders for the community, and you did this Miracle Morning series, which again I'm glad I was a tiny bit a participant in, and really grateful for your Hal, and really grateful you came on the show. And I'm so glad you wrote this expanded edition because it allows me to recommend the Miracle Morning a second time. And again, to people listening, I've literally, instead of giving my own book, I gave this book to my kids to read when they were going through different periods in their lives. And it's a valuable book. I encourage people to read it and try the practices described and all the suggestions. There's no one size fits all, which Hal definitely stresses in the book and stressed in this podcast. So there's lots of different ways to try these ideas. Really great, Hal. And look, I hope we could one day interact again in person instead of just on a podcast. I really enjoy spending time with you, and as always, thanks once again.
Yeah, James, I feel the same, man. You're one of my favorite people, one of the most enjoyable people to talk to, and we definitely need to do it in person, not just on Zoom or virtually.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks.
Diving deep into your passions has never been easier. Thanks to Amazon Prime. You get all-in-one access to the things you need, so you can get more out of the things you love. With a range of services including Prime Video, Amazon Music, and Prime Fast free shipping. Amazon Prime is like your personal mission control for all the things that inspire. From shopping and streaming to saving, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into. It's on Prime.
Did you know that franchise owners are more likely to start a successful business than entrepreneurs who go it alone? Neighborly offers 19 premier brands with services that repair, maintain, and enhance homes. With Neighborly, you'll get the business model, marketing resources, and corporate support you need to pursue a rewarding future. Learn more about joining over 5,000 Neighborly franchises by downloading your free guide at go.nbly.com/podcast.